do you want to see your ex, or are you doing this because you're upset he hasn't called you? Because if you want to see your ex, go ahead and do it. But if you're doing it because he hasn't called you, you are not connected to yourself. You don't respect or love yourself. You don't know yourself. You are going by what he's making you feel. But take back the control. Go by what you want to do. And if you want to see that ex, because you would do that even if this partner didn't annoy you, then listen to yourself. But if it's purely to even out the score, I promise you're going to leave with shame and guilt. And shame and guilt are the two worst emotions a human being can feel, because you direct that anger at yourself, and it chips away at our self-respect. So that's why I think people turn to alternatives. They've lost touch with their authenticity.
Are you from a Muslim background?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
I am Muslim. I'm Pakistani, so we grow up Muslim.
Yep. And grew up in the UK and now live in Dubai.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Given that very traditional, in some regards, upbringing in terms of the values that you've been raised with, what are your thoughts and what are your insights around this current trend of applauding childlessness and demonization of motherhood that we're seeing coming from certain corners of women's advice at the moment?
It's do you know what I have to say? It's so alien to me, because when you are from my culture, our parents live for their kids. This is all we see. So what will happen? I remember when I used to go to school with my friends who are English, and they'd say, "Oh, my mum and dad are going on holiday," or "My mum and dad are going to restaurants." And I'm like, "My mum and dad don't go and do anything without us. They just literally they just live for the kids, and their money is saved for the kids' wedding days, and everything is just like the kids. They center around probably too much around the children." So my culture was always like, life starts when you have kids. What are you going to do other than that? That's what life is about. And then growing up in an English world where it's slightly more, do what makes you happy. Makes you happy. Now, I think the balance is do what gives you a purpose. Now, nothing gives you more of a purpose in life than when you have children, because their sole existence, psychological and physical, depends on you. And I'm not saying do it because you want to, feel loved or anything, but it's the only thing that will exist when you die. So when you don't have children, it's very difficult to see how all this loving memories and intelligence and experiences you've had and not be able to pass that on to somebody. Wouldn't you, if you've had a fulfilling life, want to then pass that legacy and keep yourself alive throughout the generations? And I think what's happened is we're so pleasure seeking that the only thing that is guaranteed is death. And the only thing me and you both know is that we're going to have a funeral. Now, if on that funeral there are still remnants of you, that's a life, that's a beautiful life, and it's going to continue forever. You don't truly die when you have kids. But when on your funeral there's nobody, but you got to travel 100 countries and you got to sleep with every man you wanted, that day is going to come for all of us. And that's the only day we're guaranteed. We prepare for it by leaving a legacy, because that's what we're designed to do. So when we reject that, there must be some kind of trauma somewhere. And you know me, I think my answer to everything is always some kind of trauma, but I do think there's some kind of rejection to your true needs, because we're designed to survive and reproduce. So if those things we're rejecting, there's some disconnect with your true needs. Hi guys, don't forget to join my Patreon, where not only will you get exclusive information and videos every single week, but not only that, you can ask me a question anytime, and there's no limit to how many questions you can ask. So just subscribe, just click the link below. Okay.
I think what it shows is just how powerful culture can be. The fact that you're right, two things, right? Survival and reproduction. Culture, as of yet, hasn't been able to step in and encourage people to throw themselves in front of open traffic, but it has been able to step in and how do you say, like, perturb someone's natural inclination toward having kids. I think my current sort of viewpoint on it is that there's a lot of alternative things that people can do. There is this slow life strategy, and the costs of having children are immediate and obvious. It's going to stop you from traveling to Bali whenever you want. It means that you're going to not be able to wear those cute heels that you intended on wearing. It means that you're maybe going to get stretch marks, and maybe you're going to your body's going to gain weight, and maybe blah, blah, blah. So all of the costs are up front, and all of the benefits are kind of down the line. And even mothers in the moment, their moment to moment experience of their life isn't that pleasurable, but it's very meaningful. And in a society and a culture that optimizes pleasure above everything else, individualistic, atomized, compartmentalized, hedonic maximization every single second, trying to say, here is a reason that you should sacrifice all of the things right now that you love and society says that you should enjoy for something which is in the moment going to be very difficult and may pay off some dividends down the line. And none of your mates are doing it at the moment. So there's no mimetic sense of, oh, well, you know, I've got this culture of young women that are having kids. For every person that doesn't decide to have kids, that's another person that isn't influencing the people around them to have kids. And you get this sort of runaway effect, like the R0 number from COVID. So I see that. I really do see that at the moment. There's been a lot of talk, and that's why I flew next to your country of residence to debate about this sort of crisis of masculinity that we're facing at the moment. Do you think there's a crisis of femininity at the moment? Do you think that women are struggling for good role models right now?
I do think so. And, you know, I know from my personal experience, I don't have a role model online. I don't have a role model. And if I do have any kind of role models, it will just be like some of the men in the field that have done really great work in psychology, but I can't tell you there's a single woman that I've ever watched growing up and thought I want to be like her. And that's not because there's anything wrong with the women out there. Maybe it's my values don't connect with current environment. But what I would love to see is how we can embrace every part of being a woman. I love being different to a man. I have no desire for complete equality with a man. It just doesn't make me feel good knowing that I can do everything a man can do, because I'd rather, what's the point of you if we do everything the same? I'd rather you complete the areas of my life where I'm deficient and I complete areas of your life where you're deficient. And when I was, you know, living in England and working around English environment and stuff, there was such a desire. What I found with feminists and particularly in the English environment, there's no specimen of human being that is more privileged than the English white woman. In my experience, there's no human on this planet that is more privileged than the English white woman. And when I used to see how much they would complain about the oppression they experienced, and I just thought to myself, you definitely still have more rights than somebody like my father, who's got a bit of an accent and he's definitely Muslim and stuff like that. You definitely have more of a privilege than him. And you definitely have more of a privilege than, you know, the Caribbean guys or the Nigerian guys or the Muslim guys. When you go to the airport, you definitely have a privilege. But because people are so almost dying to be a victim, they would complain about such small things. I remember like being in schools and the teachers would complain like, oh God, the music here is too many male artists. That's inequality. And I just thought, you don't know what suffering is. You haven't experienced it, but you want to because it gives you meaning and purpose. And so I felt, and this is probably going to sound bad, but I felt like it was the most privileged members of society complaining about being oppressed when they haven't seen true oppression. And I always say to feminists that, you know, from that background, like, do you want the privileges of men or do you want the privileges of white men? Because I promise you, if you're a white woman, you don't want to have the same treatment as a black man when you're pulled over by the police or by the airport staff as a Muslim man with a beard. Are you sure you want to be treated like a man, or you just want to be treated like a certain type of man? Because I promise you, you're very privileged. And I felt it even as a woman with I have pretty much white skin. I feel incredibly privileged. So I felt like it's not a gendered thing. It's a class thing. You have more privileges through your class and your skin tone and your appearance than you do have gender. So I just didn't understand the battle. And that's what led to my disassociation.
One of the other problems, I think, is that a lot of the women that espouse this sort of victimhood narrative and say things like we need to smash the patriarchy and chivalry is dead because we don't need men, they are luxury beliefs that are held by women who are sufficiently financially stable and live in a society that is fine for them. Now, yeah, I'm totally open to believing that a high-powered female psychologist or lawyer or attorney or whatever maybe doesn't need to have the man pay for the first date or hold the door open for her or make sure that she gets home safe or whatever, because she is absolutely fine. Consider for a second the woman that is on benefits living in some rundown council estate in the northwest of the UK, who maybe the partner that she's with didn't even complete secondary school. Maybe he has no GCSEs. He had an absent father home. No one ever taught him how to be a man. Perhaps those codes of chivalry weren't constraining to him. They were assisting. Like things, it is one, as far as I can see, it is one continuum from you should make sure that your date gets home safe to you shouldn't hit your wife. Like, it is a single continuum all the way down, that there is an asymmetry in the safety that men and women have. And as soon as you start to open that door, this isn't me saying that, like, if women want to walk home safe, they're like, in 20 years time, they're going to be hit. Yeah. But my point is that as soon as you accept the fact that there are certain things that men can offer that women can't, as soon as you take those away, men start to ask the question, well, why should I bother doing this and this and this and this and this? And the dominoes begin to tumble. So a lot of these opinions are held by women for whom they are never going to be affected by the bad externalities of doing it. It's the luxury belief of all of the people that live in gated communities with private security saying, defund the police. Eat shit, bro. Eat shit. It's got fuck all to do with you. This has got nothing to do with your life. This is you being able to proselytize about how much you uphold the underclass and the working class that are being persecuted by police that come through their neighborhood. You don't live there. You don't deal with these problems.
And it's exactly that. Here's what it is. Here's what it's like. You know, when you're watching a great football match and you're so engrossed in it, you almost want to wish you supported a team. I don't watch football, but when I watched the World Cup final, I was wishing I was whichever team. I was like, whoever scored, I was on their team. I wanted to be part of that glory because at least you feel alive. Now, when you're not involved in any kind of oppression, any kind of cause, any kind of anything, you start to lose purpose. When you're watching a boring football match, you start noticing how cold it is, how shit the food is. But when you're watching something so exciting, you forget all of that and you feel alive. What I see when I see these incredibly privileged women fighting for women's rights, it's like they've watched the trauma of other people and they so want to feel alive because human nature is designed for survival. When you've got it so easy, you still crave meaning and purpose. You still crave some kind of hostility. So they jump in the fight that they actually, A, don't need, and B, they're already so privileged. And when I see these kind of feminists who are arguing about men's rights and putting men down while they live this most amazing life, what it screams to me is you're dreaming to have a meaning and purpose. You want to be on that football match. You want to be in that boxing ring. And because you don't have it, you're going to identify with the people that do and almost have a pseudo oppression. And that's what it looks like to me. I'm so grateful to be a woman, especially growing up in the West, speaking English. Do you think I would be here speaking to you if my English accent wasn't like this? What a privilege I have. So to see those people who have this complain that they're oppressed, it's laughable because I'm from a different world when I go back to Kashmir. It's laughable to me because women gender rights don't matter when you haven't got food on the table.
Given the fact that there is a challenge, perhaps, even the women who are performatively doing this victimhood by proxy thing, they would probably like to have better role models and better values to focus on. In your opinion, what are the things that can predict a healthy psychology for a woman? Where are the places that affirm that she could stand, that would make her life better and would also make the lives of the people around her better?
I think the key, I know I talk a lot about how everybody's similar, but in the sense that everybody's also different, it's authenticity. Here's a trick for mental health as a woman. You remain completely and utterly authentic, and you can't know that if you jump on other people's bandwagons, if you imitate the culture around you, if you imitate other people's experiences, if you adopt values that you haven't actually experienced. So a lot of feminists will say, oh, oppressed men in workplace. And then I'll say to them, who oppressed you at the workplace? Oh, my boss, she was a bitch. I'm like, she was a bitch? Yeah. The guy was great. The manager was great. He was lovely, but the woman didn't. So I'm asking them, what is your lived experience? Is it really that men have been oppressing you? No, they've never actually treated me that badly. Right. The moment you lose touch with your authenticity, you start living in a delusion. And when we live in a delusion, we are almost, it's a predictable, slow and steady suicide emotionally and psychologically. So start to live according to your authenticity. What do you truly want? Well, do you truly want to sleep with this guy to look cool and to act like a bad bitch? No, you don't. How do you feel afterwards? I feel shit. So why are you doing it? Do you really want to text your ex after a fight with your boyfriend? No, but I just want to get even. Why are you doing it? Do you truly want to post that picture of you out there and just have to deal with DMs all day? And do you truly feel good when you post on that OnlyFans? No, but I just want a bag. What do you want to do with that bag? I don't know. I don't even use them. Stay in touch with your authentic self. I promise you it's secure to any psychological or mental health issue.